So for someone who was so, I don't know, emotionally intelligent, I think from a young age, like I said, you was looking at the stories that I've heard and what I've read, and I read your book and all of that as well. You look at your conversations, you read about your life, you know that you have a lot of self-worth and self-belief, which is so important. But also making your own path. It can be very, very conflicting because your mother was, she is extremely one of the most celebrated, talented actors that we have. The atmosphere is so much. Your father, I mean, Mr. Khan was one of the most celebrated cricketers. I mean, of course, a lot of stories about what a gentleman he was and what a beautiful relationship he and your mother had. Yeah, and I'm sure he will continue to have forever. As a young girl, when you look up to the way your parents are, who they are, you're observing everything and their relationship. It kind of adds to your life and how you're perceiving it. I want to know how that was for you because I feel a lot of it adds to the woman who's sitting in front of me today. Everything, like your idea of romance, your idea of self-worth, your idea of fame, glory.
It's a big question. Now I feel like you should sip your drink while I answer it because I think our parents are our primary role models. And again, I was lucky to have ones that I think really helped to shape me in the most positive way. To address firstly what you said about fame and fortune, what I saw from them, because they excelled in their chosen fields.
Yeah.
Whether it was cricket, whether it was films, they became the best that they could be. And they wore their fame very lightly. It didn't define who they were. For me, they were Amma and Abba. They would come to my school PTA meetings. They would come to my school plays. They would be there for me as a child needs their parents to be. And there was no expectation ever to be successful. Ke aisa hi karna chahiye. The only thing my mother was very keen on was that I learn piano. And I did not enjoy playing the piano. And that's something she said, okay, it was my dream that, my child would play the piano for me. And I was like, I'm really sorry, that's not going to happen. But, you have to, I was able to tell her that. I was able to say that it's not for me. And this is your dream, so don't throw it on me. You can still learn how to play the piano. I mean, you're only 50-something at that point. And I love that. Yeah, I said, I'm going to play tennis because I enjoy playing tennis and badminton, and that's what I like. So to be able to have that connection, I think is important. To be able to stand up to your parents is also important. The issue of romance, again, I think especially for a young girl, to see their father and how that father treats their mother and how they treat the daughter will shape you forever. And he will either want to marry someone like your father or say, I definitely don't want to marry someone like my father.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that he was perfect by any means. But one thing I appreciated about him was that he was respectful. My mother keeps saying that everyone asks me, how did your husband allow you to work? And she was like, I was never allowed.
The questions like that still happen.
Yeah, they still happen. How didn't you have a problem with the fact that you were an actor, which is fair enough. But then how did you, after you got married, how were you still allowed to work? And he was not that kind of person who would ever interfere in someone else's. So as a child, my father was the one who was at home. And my mother was the one who was traveling and working and earning the income. So that idea also of a working mother was something that was so natural to me. So the ability to work, the desire to work after having a child is also something that I didn't have to fight against. And I told Inaya also that I'm going to work and I'm leaving you because I enjoy my work. And one day I hope that you will also have passion in what you do, such that you will also be able to raise a family and enjoy your career. So these are all things that I've absorbed as a child growing up from my parents.
So wonderful though, the way you described it. Like I said, we all have to, and you make all valid points in saying that we all have to be very aware of the way we are bringing up our children.
Yeah.
It really impacts you.
But it's also important to be authentic and to be real.
Of course.
And that doesn't mean that you should pretend. Of course, self-regulate. So if you want to lose your temper, if you want to scream and shout, and if you want to hit, self-regulate and don't do that is my advice.
Sure.
But it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be real in front of your children. It's okay to cry in front of your children. It's okay to lose your temper in front of your children. It's as long as you acknowledge and apologize.
No, 100%. I'm going to read something that you had written. It is connected to the fact that Kareena had spoken about how you took care of your father.
Yes.
When he was ailing and how you were there for the whole family. You often put out these posts on Instagram around his birthday and anniversary and stuff like that. So one of them is how I wish I could have held Inaya in his arms the way he held me when I was her age. He would have loved her and enjoyed her, and she would have learned so much from him. Things only he could teach her.
Yeah.
So some things are not meant to be, and we have no choice but to make the best of it. So wonderful. With that beautiful, the cutest baby.
I know. Yeah,
Look at that.
I'm very cute.
You are, absolutely. That has been preserved. Not all cute babies turn.
That's true. They peak at the age of 6 and then they go downhill.
You have absolutely maintained that.
I think that, it's important. How do we keep people alive? I think by talking about them, by remembering them, by celebrating them. And that's the only way that, of course, death anniversaries, birth anniversaries are times when you would organically do that.
Yeah.
But that's how we do that as a family. We keep talking about him.
How did you deal with healing and getting over the grief? How did you at that time? Where did you find that courage that I will first take care of what is necessary? Because also the post that incident, you have to take care of so many formalities.
I think the reason why we have so many formalities and so many traditions and customs is to keep us occupied, such that we have something to do. Because often when we're left with our thoughts, then those thoughts can take us into sort of a negative spiral, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that's why they keep us occupied, and people come home and you don't really get time to think.
Sure.
And then when all of that dies down, perhaps then you can truly grieve. And everyone's process is very different. I think
What was yours?
mine, we were prepared because my father was unwell. He got something called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and they told us first that, 5 years, and that in itself was shocking. And then when it actually ended up being about 5 months since he was diagnosed, and he went to hospital, and it was about 3 weeks. And 3 weeks is, for some people, a lot of time, because sometimes things happen in an instant, and you lose someone that you love in an instant, and you don't get time to say goodbye, you don't get time. So we had time to come to terms with this, in terms of the fact that it didn't happen in an instant. And also, something that I'm grateful for is that it was not a disease that lingered for many years. We didn't see him deteriorate over many years. So I like to look at the silver lining in that and say that those 3 weeks gave us time, really, as a family, to be there. Anybody who wanted to come and visit him was able to do that. We could put our affairs in order, and we could spend time. A lot of people don't get to spend time. We're so busy in our lives. We live in different cities, and you're like, I wish I'd had that time. And I was with him for, all day for the time that he was in hospital.
You spoke about patience, and you spoke about some ridiculous questions you have been asked over the years. Huh? So I'm going to highlight some of them. You mentioned some. I remember you had also mentioned about, there's a chapter in her book about ridiculous questions.
Yeah.
Sefina questions. Chalo, bacha kab hoga, that's a different conversation, because obviously you have to answer on behalf, you're the bua and all of that. When you were in the middle of that storm of all that was happening, what was Soha Ali Khan really thinking? Because you, like you said, he had called you and told you, listen, I'm marrying this person, Lala, you're laughter, whatever. And you are somebody who's, okay, it's his life, he's doing.
Yeah.
But you were constantly being asked only about that.
Yes.
Tell me, what did you do and what was going through Soha Ali Khan's mind?
No, I'm very used to this from a very young age. I think because that's why I called my book The Perils of Being Moderately Famous. Because that is the big peril. And the worry is that I get a little awkward and nervous when people ask me about Kareena. When
Even
they ask
today?
me, yeah, even today. Because I feel like immediately then I start thinking, I start filtering. Whereas my personality is not very filtered. So I'm very happy to discuss anything about myself, but I'm cognizant of the fact that other people may not be the same way.
Fair enough.
And obviously, with my mother, I can take certain liberties. With my brother, maybe fewer, but I can take certain liberties. With Kunal, I can. But with Kareena, I would be even more. I would be even more particular not to take those liberties. So I feel like that's when and it's when people are asking me that question, I'm expecting that question. It's not like I'm not expecting that question.
So even during that time, is it?
Of course. Of course. It would be foolish of me not to. And I also understand. I understand what drives these questions. And even, for example, when we had this podcast, I said, I want Kareena to come on the podcast, on All About Her. But I don't want people to think that, I've got my sister-in-law to come on this podcast because she's my sister-in-law and she happens to be hugely famous and I'm exploiting that. I have got her because I think that she is a voice that I respect. And we have a wonderful episode on positive parenting, which I thought that she was perfect for. But we're not starting with that episode. We're not, in fact, it's not there in the first 4 episodes, because I don't want people to watch for Kareena. I want them to watch for who she represents, as a parent.
So tricky, isn't it?
It's very tricky.
It's very tricky for you. And the thing is, if you are dealing with all of this in a very calm manner, this the Soha way, I like to call it from now. How would you like to deal life with the Soha way?
But it's a fact of life. I'm saying, like, most people will be like, oh, would you like to take a picture with, like, there'll be some child who has no interest in who I am anyway. And the parent will be like, my child really wants a picture with you. And I'm like, no, sure, but it doesn't look like he's interested in all. That child will also come like this. And they'll be like, do you know who she is? Do you know who she is? She's Saif Ali Khan's sister. And I'll be like, great. So I'm saying that it's all right. Because I have an amazing life in comparison to 99.9% of the population. I cannot complain. If that is my complaint, then I'm really tone deaf.
Of course.
And I'm definitely not tone deaf. So I'm very, very privileged.